Welcome back to the Shadow Archive, the home of the Mystery and the Rabbit Hole podcast. I'm Leo.
And I'm Maya.
Today, we're diving into an explainer on a phenomenon that is, frankly, absolutely everywhere right now. Seriously, if you've been anywhere online lately, you've definitely stumbled across this massive surge of viral I went to hell videos. You know the ones. People claiming they've crossed over, smelled the sulfur, and encountered these terrifying dark voids. Some even talk about reptilian, shape-shifting tormentors, kind of like in Bill Wise's famous account. It's honestly fascinating.
It really is wild. But, as a cultural analyst, I always have to take a step back and ask, how do these modern, highly viral accounts actually stack up against ancient scriptural standards? What are the actual roots here?
So to figure that out, here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to impartially look at everything from ancient linguistics to modern psychology.
Right, we'll start with the traditional fiery inferno, look at what literally got lost in biblical translation, and then examine this concept of hell on earth and in the mind.
After that, we'll unpack those distressing near-death experiences, or NDEs, and wrap up by looking at some alternative visions of the afterlife. Let's get into it. All right, starting off with part one, the traditional fiery inferno. This is that historically dominant fire and brimstone image that probably pops into your head the absolute second you hear the word. The sheer vividness of this historical imagery is just insane. When you look at texts like Dante's Inferno, we're talking about a literal prison with walls 4,000 miles thick. Imagine a place of exterior darkness where the flames give off absolutely no light, just burning heat. It's described as a space crammed with lost souls, with a frozen Satan sitting right at its core. This absolute nightmare landscape has been the baseline for the traditional perspective for centuries. And that nightmare landscape doesn't come out of nowhere. It stems from a very specific theological standard. Scriptures explicitly describe eternal conscious torment. To quote the source material directly, those who are cast into the lake of fire and brimstone shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. So this stark, unyielding framework really sets the stage for our entire analysis today. But to really understand this, we need to move to part two, lost in biblical translation. Let's deconstruct that traditional view by looking closely at the original ancient languages. The absolute most crucial question to ask yourself right now is, where did the English word hell actually come from? We've really got to question our baseline linguistic assumptions here, because the answer is entirely unexpected. So the massive clue here is the ancient word Gehenna. It literally translates to the Valley of Hinnom. Now, this wasn't originally some underground spiritual prison. It was a physical ravine located right southwest of Jerusalem. Historically speaking, it was a smoldering garbage dump where fires burned continuously to consume waste and animal remains. So those early scriptural warnings of an unquenchable fire, they were referencing a very real, very physical location right outside the city walls. Exactly, Maya. What happened was early translators essentially collapsed three completely distinct ancient concepts into the single English catch-all term hell. You had Sheol, which was the Hebrew concept of the grave or a shadowy underworld where literally all the dead go. Then you had Hades, the Greek unseen realm of the dead. And finally, Gehenna, that literal fiery valley of judgment Maya just mentioned. Bundling all three of these together completely mutated our modern perception of the afterlife. It's like mixing up three completely different maps. Which brings us nicely to part three, hell on earth and mind. Let's shift gears from ancient geography to modern psychological interpretations of suffering. From a clinical and psychological perspective, modern research suggests hell might not be a physical location at all. Instead, it's viewed as a spiritual timeout condition. It reflects our own inner traumas, our addictions, and unhealed guilt. Basically, a projection of self-hatred and absolute isolation. According to this view, we're actually creating our own hell within us while we're alive, and after death, we just step right into it. Yeah, and there's this deeply fascinating perspective drawn from clinical accounts that states hell is a place where everyone retains the physical desires they were fixated on without a way to satisfy them. Think about earthbound souls for a second. Say addicts eternally craving substances they can no longer consume because they literally don't have a physical body anymore. It frames hell as this tragic, self-inflicted state of incredibly frustrated desire. Now we're on to part four, distressing near-death experiences. This brings us right back to those viral phenomena we were talking about at the start. Looking at this clinically, researchers like Grayson and Bush have actually identified three distinct types of these distressing NDEs. First, you have frightening features with a total loss of control. Second, an absolute eternal void of nothingness. And third, direct hellish imagery. And the really surprising part? The data shows these happen entirely regardless of someone's religious beliefs or their earthly deeds. These terrifying experiences are reported by people across all demographics. A prime example of that hellish imagery category is the famous case of Howard Storm. He was an atheist art professor who reported being dragged into outer darkness by these hostile, mocking entities. The crazy thing is, he later realized those beings were kindred spirits reflecting his own earthly selfishness. According to his account, he was ultimately saved only by calling out to the light. Storm's ultimate takeaway from that experience is honestly chilling. He said, "Hell is spooky. It is the free will gone riot, where the Holy Spirit who constrains our evil tendencies here is gone." So basically, he's describing a place where we are given exactly what we want, entirely without divine constraint or law, and as a result, we just become the torturers of each other. All of this leads us to our final section, alternative visions of the afterlife. We're going to look at how different denominations process these deeply conflicting accounts into their own doctrines. So looking at the source material, we have two vastly different theological views right out of the gate. On one hand, there is eternal torment, that traditional view of everlasting, conscious punishment we discussed earlier. On the other hand, you have annihilationism. This is a doctrine prominently held by the Seventh-day Adventist Church, which argues that the wicked are completely consumed in the lake of fire and simply cease to exist forever, rather than suffering for eternity. And then there's a third major view, universal salvation. This model is actually supported by early church fathers like Origen. It views hell as a temporary, purgatorial state, kind of like a refiner's fire meant to burn away your impurities, leading to the eventual restoration and salvation of all souls. It really brings to mind what C.S. Lewis famously wrote, "The gates of hell are locked from the inside." It's such a profound idea because it directly connects ancient theology to modern NDE survivors. Both suggest that souls stubbornly trap themselves in the darkness by refusing the light, choosing instead to cling to their own pride, their earthly addictions, or their own self-hatred. So, what does this all mean for us? We leave you with this final provocative thought. Is hell an eternal physical prison, or is it the ultimate mirror, forcing us to face our own inner darkness?
We've explored the ancient linguistics, the theological debates, and those harrowing clinical NDEs. Now it's completely up to you to draw your own conclusions about what truly awaits in the shadows.
Thanks for joining us for this explainer.
We'll catch you next time.